Okay, this segment is on how to sample a popcorn ceiling sort of a texture, or for that matter, any sort of asbestos material or something that you might think is potentially asbestos. As the realtor, you don't necessarily want to consider this to be training for how you personally should do it. Again, that would be last resort. If you're in the middle of nowhere and there's nobody available, you might have to take this on, but be aware that you're doing this at the risk of your own lungs. Don't do it. So, how to sample. So one of the things you're going to want to have at your disposal is either a Ziploc baggie or an airtight container. If you go to ALS, you can get this little vial, a sample tube that is available from ALS. And the goal is to, once you've got this asbestos containing material captured and in the container, you want to make sure that the container is not going to rupture or break, and you want to make sure that it stays where it's supposed to be. You can only imagine the nasty scenario if you were to put it in a loose baggie. Maybe the baggie ruptures or whatever, or maybe it just leaks asbestos out. Maybe you've mailed it in a standard mailer and it gets to the lab, and the lab opens this up, and now they've got asbestos fibers all over their lab, and they've got to take extraordinary steps so that they can continue to provide reliable service for every other customer. So in many cases, if the lab sees something sent to them that is not well sealed, they won't accept it. It doesn't come through their front door, and they'll just send you a nasty little letter that says, sorry, we didn't analyze your stuff because it wasn't sealed. So item number one is it's got to be, at least in an airtight baggie, or better yet, in some sort of an airtight sort of a vial or container. You want to use a spray gun. Just a little hand sprayer will be fine, a little bit of water. You want to turn that, if we're sampling the asbestos or the popcorn ceiling texture, for sampling that, you can just spray that just a little bit, get a little bit wet, and then as we're using the knife to get popcorn ceiling texture down, we're not releasing fibers into the air. If the home inspector is doing it, you're going to want to make sure that he is sampling from a number of different locations, and you want to make sure that he has, by the time he's done, he has sampled at least enough to at least cover the head of a quarter. You don't want to just have one small dot be the representative for what's happening through the entire room. Another thought is that generally, in most homes, when the home has asbestos throughout maybe the main floor, chances of that being sprayed in at the same time are pretty good, but you never know. So maybe if we do have asbestos maybe in the living room, in the kitchen, and all the bedrooms, it might be a good idea to take a small part of that sample from every one of those rooms, so that if maybe this room was sprayed not with asbestos and that room was sprayed with asbestos, at least we know that there's asbestos in the space. The alternative would be to actually have a sample for this room, a sample for that room, and a sample for each of those rooms over there, but as you might guess, that gets considerably more expensive. Another thing you want to make sure doesn't happen is you don't want to have any specks on the floor. So if I'm up here working on this popcorn ceiling texture, and I've got my vial up here and I'm trying to get everything to go in, you want to make sure that we're not raining other particles down onto the floor. Now, if that does happen, you want to make sure they get picked up so that they're not being walked across continuously, and the asbestos fibers that are in them being run up into the air, where again they get breathed and then they cause lung issues. That's how to do a sample for asbestos. In the next segment, we're going to talk about abatement and how remediation on asbestos should be done.